Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about emotions versus feelings. What is the difference? So I thought it would be beneficial to kind of dive in a little bit deeper to understand the differences between those two words. And really, we're going to look at just major differences because as I started my research and I found all the information really that's going on and happening in the brain, although it is super interesting, I think it would not be beneficial to where we want to go with the information. Really, we just want to know, how does it help us understand ourselves a little bit better? So you can kind of think of this more like a sketch. We're going to do like the 5-year-old stick figure sketch version of feelings versus emotion and not the Leonardo da Vinci masterpiece of understanding what the differences are. When I first started looking into the research, my first instinct was to look at the images because that's always a simpler version. Here are some basics. Emotions are physical states, so that makes sense. We were talking about that a while back when we were talking about worry, and then the feelings are the mental association. So it's kind of an interesting thought because really what is happening is your brain is recognizing something, causing something to happen in your body, in your physical state, and then your brain again is now talking. It's like a feedback loop. The brain cannot automatically go there. The brain does something, and then that something tells your brain something, and then you get an answer. Everything goes back to the brain. The brain is telling itself, hey, this is what's happening. How are we going to feel about this? That's kind of like what we're doing here. We're being our own brain, basically. That's what we're doing. And then we have the order. So I think order is good to know. The emotion comes first and then the feeling happens. Finally, we have the observations of it. And that one is also not quite so clear. You would think that it would be something that all the scientists, all the philosophers would have come to an understanding. Even when I say that, okay, yeah, right, scientists come to one understanding. They don't even agree on how the world came to be or this or that. There's going to be dissension. And so the same thing actually happens when it comes to emotions and feelings. Not everybody's on the same page with this. So one thing that I did look into was where do they agree when it comes to emotions and feelings? And so I found some information from Harvard. No, I found some information from Stanford. They listed things that scientists and philosophers actually come together about, the components of an emotion. And when you think about what an emotion is made up of, and this is one of those things where it's like on the surface, it looks very simple. That you have a stimulus and then you have a bodily reaction. But then when you really stop to think about it, it is super complicated when it comes to like what exactly is happening in the body. Another thing that I kind of compiled together, and it's referring to different factors. On one sense, one way, but on another sense, it's another way. It could be short-lived or it could be long-lived. So the time span that it takes. And I included some examples. I'm taking this from the Encyclopedia Philosophy. Facial expressions or lack of facial expressions. It could be a cross species or exclusively human, which this one I had to look up. Come on now, America's Funniest Home Videos was popular for a reason. I think it's because of, I'm going to try to say it, Schadenfreude. Schadenfreude. I keep just saying it the same way over and over again. That's not helping. Let's see if somebody will say it for me.
Schadenfreude.
Did you hear that? There we go. Schadenfreude. Freude. As you can see, this is not as maybe simple as one would have initially have thought. So going back to that picture we saw, it said there's a stimuli and then your body reacts to it. Okay, so that is true, but then there is some things that are just not as simple as like cause and effect. Not like bang bang, it's gonna be a little bit more complicated. The feelings would be the thoughts and beliefs that we have now attached to the emotions that we're feeling. we're going to get even more complicated, right? By using the verb feeling to talk about emotions, and then feelings. So we have verbs and nouns, and they're all meaning different things. So we have these feelings that become even more complicated, because once you have a feeling, that feeling doesn't necessarily need now that stimulus of the emotion to be felt. Once you've had the stimulus, now it is something that can be revisited multiple times. So it's no wonder why there are people out there, myself included, that want to avoid negative feelings and avoid negative things, because if this is something that is hard to manage to begin with, and now it is something that could just keep reoccurring like a nightmare, then that doesn't sound very pleasant. But then we're also not dealing with it too, and that's not good too. So now you might be getting to the point where your head is as full as mine of all this information, and you might be asking yourself, yes, it is interesting to know all these things, and the head knowledge is one thing, but how is this going to impact and influence like how we live and what this means to us? Knowing that you have these emotions, something happens and you respond, your body is responding to it. Now maybe you're predisposed to react a certain way over others. I mean, I thought about that as I was like writing some of this stuff out. It's like, well, not everybody's afraid of the same thing. Not everybody has the same response to emotions. And granted, maybe part of it is based on their own feelings towards those emotions, but also certain types of people like to have certain types of feelings over others. I personally don't like to be scared, but I know a lot of people that like to put themselves in that situation. That has become, so like talking about the feedback, you get an emotion, and so let's say it is fear. You get this fear, and you can respond different ways to it just depending on the feeling now you get towards it. Is it something that you get a rush out of, and therefore it becomes more of a pleasant response? Or do you poop your pants and it is not a good response whatsoever, and so therefore now you have a negative outlook on being scared because of this cycle, and it just keeps going. But I can break the cycle. So that's the nice thing about this. There's going to be instances where I am scared. Okay, maybe I should pick one that I would actually want to work on. And how about this one? I actually have worked on my fear of spiders. I literally called my husband, and this happened actually before the meme. If I were to have recorded my conversation, the conversation would have been the meme, but that's for another story. I am motivated to not have to rely on people to kill the spiders for me. I want to be able to kill the spiders myself or move them to another location. I now have to break that cycle by, when I see a spider, I need to now talk to myself and say, I am bigger than the spider. I can take care of the spider myself. The spider is very small, and I'm talking myself down from that heightened sense of awareness and fear, and then I can dispose of the spider. Practice has made it better. So by me not just immediately retreating, I have been able to attack this little particular sliver of the fear that's out there. So going back again to that feedback, it's like this fear was causing anxiety, helplessness. I said, no, that's not going to happen. I am 150 times bigger than a spider. I can figure out how to deal with a spider. We know that there's this cycle going on, and we can figure out how to break the cycle, to make the cycle work for us. That's what life is about. Life is about taking on these hurdles that come our way and trying to figure out, how do we work the system? How do we work ourselves, because we're part of the system, in order to jump over the hurdle, in order to figure out what we need to do to get to the other side. A lot of it is looking at what you're doing. That's what I'm finding out right now, is I am really a part of the system. How I would really attack things was just like, here is the system, and I'm an outside member of the system looking in, kind of seeing and observing how things are going. I'm also part of that system. And so by me figuring out myself, I'm going to be able to go further because not only can I see the system out there, but now I'm also seeing the system. There we go. I'm also seeing the system in here, and we're putting it all together, and it's really going to be biggest bang for the buck there. I think that's where people are missing. They got their own system down, or they got the outside system down, but it's hard to find somebody that has both systems down. I think that's really where you're gonna find the biggest growth. I'm kind of just riffing here because this sounds all theoretical and good, and this is actually what I'm working towards, but it's a work in progress. So it sounds right to me, and so now I gotta put it in practice.
Squints! Come on, man! Oh God, he looks like a dead fish. What?
This magic moment.
Little pervert! Oh man!
So as you can see, these emotions and feelings, we're still going to use them interchangeably.
Name that emotion! In this game, we have to figure out what feeling our contestants are feeling.
And that is perfectly fine because I think we get it. There's something going on in our brain, and there's something else going on in our brain. So we have our reaction, and then we have our response to the reaction. And those two things together, it's really hard to take those two things apart. With this information, I hope it spurs you to kind of look a little bit more into what you understand about feelings and emotions. I hope that you're able to understand yourself a little bit better and kind of see where you can kind of cut the loop, where you can hijack the system. And I think we're going to stop there. And I hope that you join me next time when we look at something different. And with that, I will say goodbye. Here in this particular article from Harvard, did it again. It's one of those Ivy League schools, like peanut butter and jelly. They just go together, and it's really hard to see where the peanut butter starts and the... Why am I doing that? Feelings and emotions are super connected. Super is like my word. Super.
Schadenfreude.